Good afternoon to you. Mark Stott with HurricaneTrack.com here with your Hurricane Outlook and discussion, the off-season edition, continuing here for the second day of March 2016. Have about 90 days until the start of the hurricane season, already halfway through the off-season, so things are going to start becoming a little bit more important as we look at the larger pieces of the puzzle that we use to try to decipher what might happen in the upcoming season. And part of that, of course, would be sea surface temperatures and anomalies, the departures from normal. And this is what it looked like at the very beginning of the year, back on January the 4th. And you can see the very strong El Nino in here in the Pacific, and a little bit of cool look to the main development region of the deep tropics in the Atlantic. And then look what happens here as we skip ahead just almost a couple of months here to the first part of March. At the end of February, first part of March, we lose a lot of that heat here in the Pacific, and the Atlantic's trying to warm up just a little bit, especially the Caribbean Sea. And this should fill in a little bit more over the next few weeks as the high pressure out here over the North Atlantic weakens just a little bit, and the trade winds relax a little bit more in the deep tropics. And there's some people already talking about the upcoming hurricane season, saying that maybe it'll be a little bit active compared to what we've seen, maybe a lot more active. Too early to speculate, I think, this early in the game, but a lot of the puzzle pieces that we look at are indicating that at least the opportunity should be there for the season to be more active than we have seen since probably 2012. You remember 2013 was not very active at all. 2014, we had Hurricane Arthur that hit the Outer Banks of North Carolina and Hurricane Gonzalo that hit Bermuda. And other than that, that was pretty much it for the Atlantic Basin. And then last year, of course, Hurricane Joaquin, devastating portions of the Bahamas, and then the moisture from it getting drawn into the southeast United States over here created a lot of flooding issues, but it was not a direct hit. And so we went, the entire 2015 season with no U.S. landfalling hurricanes. So that might change this year. We'll see. There are certainly some things that point towards conditions being more favorable, one of those being this very cold area of water in the subsurface relative to average. You see the El Nino here shrinking away still, and we've almost got those cold anomalies reaching the surface here. The top represents the surface, the bottom some 450 meters deep, and the right side over here is the eastern Pacific, and the left side is the west Pacific. And all of this cold water in the subsurface definitely making inroads, chiseling away the warm pool here, and that's why this looks like it does. And you can see right over in the eastern Pacific here starting to lose the heat even more so at the surface, but the El Nino holding on to moderate levels in the central Pacific, and that will hopefully still lend some heavy precip for California where they desperately need it. I'm going to talk about that towards the end of the discussion. Now, going from departures from normal to actual sea surface temperatures, this is the Gulf of Mexico. Kind of looks like a person with their arms stretched out saying, yay, or maybe an eagle or something, I don't know. You see what you want to see, but interesting look to the 26-degree isotherm here, and that's what this orange color is, 26 degrees Celsius, line of equal temperature, isotherm. Very warm in the southeast Gulf. Overall, the Gulf of Mexico getting warmer every day now because of the sun angle getting higher and higher in the sky. Same thing for the western Atlantic. The Gulf Stream not too far offshore of Hatteras and Morehead City, Atlantic Beach, Wilmington even. Nice and toasty in the Gulf Stream, water temperatures in the low to mid 70s. And it won't be long, over the next few weeks, these temperatures will go up slowly but surely, and especially along the Gulf Coast region. Anybody with spring break plans, South Padre to Panama City Beach, some of these water temperatures still a little cool, but they're going to be going up and will hopefully be near 70 degrees or higher in most coastal areas once spring break really gets going in earnest later in the month and through, of course, the month of April. All right, so let's look at lower 48 weather, and that's the other part of these off-season discussions. Looking for large disruptive storm systems, maybe a nor'easter. And in this case, I'm going to talk about sort of two different scenarios here. One will be for the east and mid-Atlantic to northeast, and then out here in the west. So let's jump in. Nothing really going on today of any big significance anywhere. A lot of wind out here in the Great Plains. March brings in the wind. So let's look at the GFS here. This is 72 hours worth that I want to start with. And I want you to keep your eye on this area, and then what happens as a low pressure area comes out and develops to what should be a pretty strong nor'easter that's just going to graze the mid-Atlantic and northeast states. So let's go through time here. Watch what happens. The low starts to form. There it is right there. And it comes on out. In fact, let me just animate this, and then I can talk over it. It makes it a lot easier than trying to step through the frames. All right, so let's scroll down. There it is. You see it coming across. Low pressure develops off the Carolina coast and then tracks up just to the south and east of Cape Cod. But watch it again. It's pretty intense once it gets going. And on the back side of it, this is your 0 degree isotherm here, Celsius. And it's well enough offshore that probably southeast New England here, maybe Boston, certainly the Cape, Nantucket, and Martha's Vineyard, maybe eastern Long Island, maybe getting in on some of that action for some snow and strong wind. So keep your eye on that if you live up in that region. A lot of different folks that follow this stuff closer than I do up there will have much more details on that. And then some snow even for parts of the Appalachians, maybe down into the Piedmont of North Carolina. We'll see about that as this tracks on through. Still a couple of days away, and it's interesting that it has definitely trended stronger, this storm system. If this had been mid-February, this would probably be a pretty big snowmaker for a good deal of the mid-Atlantic and up the I-95 corridor, not too unlike the one that happened in mid to late January, the big old blizzard that I went up for. But it's March, temperatures are warmer, days are longer, and so it's battling climatology. So let's switch gears, look at the GFS with another run, and I want this time to pay attention out west. Look what's coming in here to the Pacific Northwest, Northern California, storm system after storm system, which is great news for these folks in the scheme of things. Yes, it means inclement weather, even some very heavy rainfall in some instances here. The Sierra really going to add to the snowpack, measuring it in the feet to possibly tens of feet in some cases. Maybe 10 to 20 feet of snow, I'm not kidding, which is really, really good. You want that snowpack because that'll gradually melt away during the warm months and add to the watershed out there, and you really, really want that to happen. Believe me. So what's good for the West Coast is good for everybody else too. So storm system after storm system coming in over the next couple of weeks. Certainly a connection to the warm tropical Pacific, the El Nino. This is the type of pattern that we would expect to see in an El Nino season, is sort of that tapped tropical Pacific moisture pool and warm energy pool that gets together with the jet stream to drive these storms in and deliver a lot of precipitation. You see that even all the way down into Southern California and northern Mexico possibly. So that's good news. Let's hope it comes to fruition, and hopefully with that people pay attention, because too much of a good thing can become a problem, obviously, and we want to make sure that people are paying attention. Could be flooding rains. So I'll talk about this more probably on Monday as these storms really start to ramp up. And by the way, here is a look at the quantitative precipitation forecast. Basically just a fancy way of saying look at all that rain and moisture that's coming, snowpack for the west, and here's the nor'easter that comes by. And again, some of this may be snow here with a lot of wind in southeast New England, and possibly some decent snows elsewhere, though it's hard to pinpoint right now. I think the greatest chance of a winter storm, if you will be across this region, and even down into the Appalachians, like I said. Just mainly pay attention to your local weather service outlet. I'm not as much of a winter storm knowledge base as I am hurricanes, so I certainly refer you to weather.gov for your local area, but be on the lookout for that. One more little storm system before we can say goodbye, I think, to winter storm season 2016 in terms of the snow. We're still going to have these storms cut across the south, heavy rains in parts of the Mississippi Valley over the next week or so, and then the possibility of severe weather is going to start ramping up as temperatures get warmer as the seasons begin to change. All right? So there's a lot to watch over the next week to 10 days, maybe longer as we get towards mid-March, and then the pattern will probably head more towards spring, and we'll have to watch the Great Plains and the South for the possibility of severe weather at the other end of March going into April, of course. And then, like I said, we're only 90 days away from hurricane season, and with that, let me offer one little tip for you, and if you do this one thing, it could make it so much easier for you. If you don't have insurance, like you're a renter especially, look into getting renter's insurance if you live in the hurricane zones. Very cheap, very cost effective, and it could help you tremendously. And if you are a homeowner or a business owner, be sure to check up on your insurance. It might have been a while since we haven't had hurricane threats of any significance in quite some time. Make sure you know what's covered, what's not covered, and you want to know that explicitly. You don't need some fuzzy, yeah, it's probably covered. You need to make sure. And then you need to find out what is the process if a hurricane hits and a lot of people are devastated. How do I best go about filing a claim to make sure that I can get back on my feet in a timely manner? You need to know all this stuff now. Get names and phone numbers and emails of people that you can count on and contact after a hurricane or any other disaster for that matter. You know, if you're prepared for a hurricane, significantly so, you're prepared for pretty much anything if you really think about it. So there's my piece of advice for today as we close in 90 days and counting until the start of the season. All right, well, that's it for me for today and this week. I'll probably do another video blog on Monday. We'll have some new information on the state of the El Nino, what we call the ENSO state, and certainly these California rains and storm systems, part of that. So I'll address more of that on Monday. In the meantime, have a great rest of your week. Watch out for that little nor'easter kind of deal on the East Coast. It'll be interesting to see how that turns out. And that's it. All right, I'm Mark Sudduth for HurricaneTrack.com. As always, thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you next week.